Do you ever feel like something is watching you in the dark? Maybe when the lights go out, your room feels a little too quiet, like the silence is hiding something. That's how it started for Mia. She was a normal girl, living in a quiet town, but her nights were anything but peaceful. It began on a cold autumn evening. Mia had just moved into a new house with her family. The house was old, with creaky wooden floors and doors that groaned when they opened. It had a charm to it during the day, but at night it felt different, darker, as if the house had secrets it didn't want to share. Her room was small but cozy, with a bed pushed against the wall, a desk by the window, and a tall closet in the corner. The closet was the kind with double doors that never seemed to close completely, no matter how hard she pushed them. There was always a tiny gap, just wide enough to make her uneasy. Have you ever had a closet like that? One that makes you wonder what might be lurking inside? The first night in her new room, Mia couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, and the trees cast long, twisted shadows on her walls. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, just her imagination. But then she heard it, a faint creak, like the sound of a door opening ever so slightly. She froze, staring at the closet. The gap between the doors seemed wider than before. Was it her mind playing tricks on her? Or had the door actually moved? Mia pulled the covers up to her chin, her heart pounding. She wanted to get up and check, but her legs felt like they were glued to the bed. Instead, she turned on her bedside lamp and stared at the closet, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. After what felt like hours, she convinced herself it was just the old house settling. She turned off the light and tried to sleep. The next few nights were the same. Every time she turned off the lights, she felt uneasy. The closet seemed darker, deeper, like it was hiding something. One night, she decided to leave the closet doors open, thinking it might help her feel less scared. But that only made it worse. Now she could see the dark space inside, and it felt like the shadows were watching her. Have you ever felt that? Like the darkness itself was alive? Mia's parents didn't understand when she told them. Her mom laughed it off, saying, "It's just a new house, honey. You'll get used to it." Her dad said, "There's nothing in the closet, Mia. You're letting your imagination run wild." But Mia couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. Something was in her closet. One night, she decided to prove it to herself. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. Slowly, she got out of bed and walked toward the closet. The floor creaked under her feet, and her hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. "It's nothing," she whispered to herself. "There's nothing there." She yanked the doors open and shone the light inside. Empty. Just her clothes hanging neatly on hangers and a few boxes on the floor. She felt silly. Of course, there was nothing there. She closed the doors tightly and went back to bed, feeling a little braver. But that night, the dreams started. In her dreams, Mia was in her room, but everything felt wrong. The walls seemed closer, the air heavier. The closet doors were wide open, and a dark shadow stood just inside, watching her. It didn't have a face, but she could feel its eyes on her, cold and unblinking. It whispered her name, soft at first, then louder, until it was screaming. Mia would wake up drenched in sweat, her heart racing. Have you ever had a dream so real it stayed with you even after you woke up? The nights blurred together. Mia stopped sleeping. She started leaving the lights on, but even that didn't help. The shadows were still there, waiting. One night, as she lay in bed staring at the closet, she saw it. The gap between the doors slowly widened. She wanted to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. A dark shape began to emerge, tall and thin, its movements slow and deliberate. Mia squeezed her eyes shut, hoping it would go away. But when she opened them, the shadow was closer, standing at the foot of her bed. It didn't move like a person. It was jerky, unnatural, like it was struggling to keep its shape. "What do you want?" Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. The shadow tilted its head, as if it were confused by her question. Then, in a voice that sounded like wind through cracked windows, it said, "You." Mia scrambled out of bed and ran to her parents' room. She tried to explain what had happened, but they didn't believe her. Her dad checked the closet again, finding nothing but clothes and boxes. "There's nothing here, Mia," he said, frustration in his voice. "You need to stop letting your imagination get the better of you." But Mia knew it wasn't her imagination. The shadow was real, and it wasn't going to stop. She decided to take matters into her own hands. The next day, she did some research online, looking for anything that might explain what she was experiencing. She found stories of people who had seen shadows like hers, dark figures that haunted them in the night. Most of the stories didn't end well. Mia decided she had to face it. That night, she stayed awake, sitting on her bed with her phone in hand. She waited, her eyes fixed on the closet. Hours passed, and just when she thought it might not come, the gap between the doors widened. The shadow stepped out, its movements slow and deliberate. "Why are you here?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. The shadow didn't answer at first. It just stood there, its form shifting like smoke. Then it said, "You let me in." Mia's mind raced. She remembered the night she had opened the closet, shining her flashlight inside. Had that somehow invited it into her world? She didn't know, but she had to do something. "You need to leave," she said, trying to sound brave. The shadow didn't move. It seemed to grow darker, its edges sharpening. "You can't make me," it said, its voice like a hiss. Mia felt a surge of anger. She was tired of being scared, tired of feeling helpless. "This is my room," she said, louder this time. "You don't belong here." To her surprise, the shadow hesitated. It flickered, its form becoming less solid. Mia realized it was afraid of her defiance. She stood up, her fear replaced by determination. "Leave," she said again, her voice firm. The shadow let out a low growl, but it began to retreat. It moved back toward the closet, its shape dissolving into the darkness. When it was gone, Mia slammed the closet doors shut and pushed a chair in front of them. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. Mia didn't sleep that night, but the shadow didn't return. She told her parents what had happened, and this time, they believed her. They brought in a priest to bless the house, and Mia started keeping a small lamp on in her room at night. The closet door stayed locked, and the shadow never came back. But sometimes, late at night, Mia still feels like she's being watched. She wonders if the shadow is truly gone, or if it's waiting for her to let her guard down. Have you ever faced something you couldn't explain? Would you be brave enough to stand up to it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tales of mystery and terror. And remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones hiding in plain sight.